Marilyn always dreamt of being an actress.
Miss Monroe, it's time.
She didn't, by the way, dream of being a star. She dreamt of being an actress. And she had always lived somehow with that dream. And that is why, despite the fact that she became one of the unusual and outstanding stars of all time, she herself was never satisfied.
You look at an interview from me from 10 years ago, everybody says, I love that interview. People didn't love it back then, though, because I was speaking to the future. I'm 10 years ahead mentally, and I'm trapped in today's time. And every now and then I crack you a smile for 2013, but I'm cracking you a frown for 2023. And I'm focused on what it's gonna be. Just mark my words, as I'm Kanye West, you've seen my execution.
I'm trying to get to the point where I can drop my last name off my name, you know what I'm saying? Seriously.
Kanye West is a name that needs no introduction. He is known for his music, fashion, and his love for controversy.
I've been sent here to give y'all my truth, even at the risk of my own life, even at the risk of my own success, my own career. I've been sent here to give y'all the truth.
However, what many people don't know is that Kanye West and Marilyn Monroe have more in common than meets the eye. In this video, we will explore the parallels between these two iconic figures and examine how they have influenced each other's work. Marilyn Monroe once said, "You know, they ask me questions. Just an example, what do you wear to bed? A pajama top? The bottoms of the pajamas? A nightgown?" So I said, Chanel No. 5, because it's the truth. And yet, I don't want to say nude. But it's the truth. This was in an interview with George Belmont in 1960. She was a master seductress and wrapped many men around her red lips. From Mafia bosses to JFK, who also met an untimely death. But that's another story on its own. Marilyn Monroe was an American actress, model, and icon. Born Norma Jean Mortensen in 1926, she became the most famous of Hollywood starlets and was the definitive blonde bombshell. Monroe's style has been an inspiration for Kanye's fashion line. Kanye has sampled Monroe's voice in his music. Kanye has referenced Monroe in his lyrics. She was also an intelligent and philanthropic woman, who strived to become an accomplished actress. In November 1954, Monroe left Hollywood for the East Coast, where she and photographer Milton Green founded their own production company, Marilyn Monroe Productions. An action that has later been called instrumental in the collapse of the studio system. Remind you of a similar disruptor of the norm?
It's life. We got 100 years out here, 100 years on this planet, bro, and we can have a utopia. We can love each other, but the rules gotta be fair.
Well, we don't all have 100 years to live. But our lives should have a 100-year influence. Where people never forget about us, and always remember the good we actually did. After founding MMP, Monroe moved to Manhattan and spent 1955 studying acting. She took classes with Constance Collier and attended workshops on method acting at the Actors Studio, run by Lee Strasberg.
Its director, Lee Strasberg, and his wife, Paula, the parental figures who henceforth would dominate her career.
Monroe also started undergoing psychoanalysis, as Strasberg believed that an actor must confront their emotional traumas and use them in their performances.
Marilyn always dreamt of being an actress. She didn't, by the way, dream of being a star. She dreamt of being an actress. And she had always lived somehow with that dream. And that is why, despite the fact that she became one of the unusual and outstanding stars of all time, she herself was never satisfied.
You look at an interview from me from 10 years ago, everybody says, I love that interview. People didn't love it back then, though, because I was speaking to the future. I'm 10 years ahead mentally, and I'm trapped in today's time. And every now and then I crack you a smile for 2013, but I'm cracking you a frown for 2023. And I'm focused on what it's gonna be. Just mark my words, as I'm Kanye West, you've seen my execution.
I'm trying to get to the point where I can drop my last name off my name, you know what I'm saying? Seriously.
I can just decided that I'm gonna be the best dressed rapper in the game.
Before I had my car, I used to be walking to the train practicing my Grammy speech.
These two really mastered their craft and became the best of the best. Marilyn was a big supporter of civil rights and used her fame to help out her black friends' careers. It's claimed one of the most popular music venues in the 50s, Macombo, in Hollywood, wouldn't book Ella Fitzgerald, because she was black. Ella was an American jazz singer, sometimes referred to as the First Lady of Song, Queen of Jazz, and Lady Ella. She was noted for her purity of tone, impeccable diction, phrasing, timing, intonation, and a horn-like improvisational ability, particularly in her scat singing. She has been sampled numerous times, and Kanye has used her once in his second studio album Late Registration. The urban legend states that Marilyn told the owners of the club that she would sit in the front row for each of Ella's performances if they agreed to put her on the stage. While the part about Marilyn convincing the owners of Macombo to allow Ella to perform is true, the reason they were hesitant wasn't that they had never had black performers at the club. While her race would undoubtedly have played a part given the era, black entertainers including Eartha Kitt and Herb Jeffries had played at Macombo before Ella. The reason for their reluctance to book her was that owner was hesitant to have a true jazz singer perform, worrying she wasn't glamorous enough for the club in West Hollywood. I wonder if Lizzo would have been allowed to play there. Singing at the Macombo was a turning point in Fitzgerald's career. With a major nightclub on her resume, she was no longer relegated to small clubs. She was grateful to Marilyn, although she held back from close friendship because of Marilyn's drug habit. Marilyn had in fact stepped in to speak to Macombo's owner Charlie Morrison to urge him to book Ella, and the singer has spoken about what happened. Ella said, "I owe Marilyn Monroe a real debt. She personally called the owner of the Macombo and told him she wanted me booked immediately, and if he would do it, she would take a front table every night." She told him, and it was true, due to Marilyn's superstar status, that the press would go wild.
The Marilyn dress is here. This is a replica. If this does not fit me, I can't even try the original. So I've Googled her measurements, I'm looking at my measurements. The width of my shoulders and my body makes me like a shapeshifter. I can squeeze into anything. So I don't know how to convince the guy that owns the original Marilyn dress that I'm a shapeshifter.
Monroe's iconic status and tragic end have been compared to Kanye's own struggles with fame and mental health.
This is all mind control. You gotta understand, I don't believe I'm putting myself at risk, because I think God uses me for a time like this. He put me in this situation and had y'all follow me from George Bush Don't Care to Beyonce Had the Best Video to now. For some reason, y'all are interested.
Monroe famously sang Happy Birthday to President Kennedy, and Kanye has also performed at political events. Both Kanye and Monroe have used their platform to challenge societal norms and push boundaries. Marilyn passed away in 1962 at only 36 years old. The image is stamped into the pages of history. August 5, 1962, a lifeless Marilyn Monroe lies naked, face down on her bed with a telephone receiver in hand and an empty bottle of Nembutal beside her in her Brentwood, Los Angeles guest house. The official cause of the 36-year-old's death was probable suicide.
And they wanted to medicate me every day. You realize, they could have just switched to medication and I wouldn't be here. And on the news, they would have said it was because of a mental issue, right? Yeah. I ain't never been back to the hospital since 2015, but every time they say I'm crazy, it's just when I'm saying the truth. So what's the crazy part, really?
But 55 years later, conjecture about what really happened is as strong as ever, with new conspiracy theories continuing to materialize and old ones still being scrutinized.
Mr. President, the late Marilyn Monroe.
Conspiracy Theory 1. The Kennedys did it. Just 2.5 months after her famously sultry performance of Happy Birthday at President John F. Kennedy's 45th birthday on May 19, 1962, at Madison Square Garden, Monroe, born Norma Jean Mortensen, would be dead.
Happy birthday, Mr. President.
Kennedy and his younger brother, U.S. Attorney General Robert F. Kennedy, feature heavily in several Monroe murder conspiracies. In 2007, Australian filmmaker Philippe Mora discovered a partially redacted FBI document that suggests Robert Kennedy, also said to have had an affair with Monroe like his more famous brother, may have been complicit in a plot to induce her suicide. Also implicated is Kennedy's then brother-in-law and Rat Packer actor Peter Lawford as the conspiracy's lead, Monroe's psychiatrist Dr. Ralph Greenson, housekeeper Eunice Murray and agent Pat Newcomb. The depressive Monroe, who had struggled with drug and alcohol abuse, had been known to seek attention by staging suicide attempts, and the document suggests she was given the means to do so, the barbiturate second by the alleged conspirators, but was then left to die. As many theories have proffered before, the FBI file infers the alleged plot was carried out to silence Monroe, who had threatened to reveal her affairs with the Kennedy brothers. Monroe was also thought to be a liability, allegedly keeping records of conversations detailing highly confidential government information in a little red book. Conspiracy Theory 2, the Mafia did it. Another sensational Bobby Kennedy theory materialized with the allegation of renowned wiretapper Bernard Spindle, who had bugged Monroe's house possibly on the orders of crooked Union leader Jimmy Hoffa or Chicago Mafia boss Sam Giancana. Despite reported sightings of him in LA and entering her house, Kennedy stated he was in San Francisco on the night of Monroe's death. But Spindle claims to have heard Kennedy and Monroe fighting that night with Lawford present, followed by a loud bang, thought to be her last moment on Earth. The recordings were reportedly seized and destroyed in 1966. A lot of people had a lot to lose if Marilyn spoke out, Porter said. She was making a lot of dangerous statements and didn't realize she was playing with the big boys. I think Marilyn got in over her head. Porter believes 5 Mafia hitmen were responsible for her murder on the order of Giancana, using a washcloth drenched in chloroform, then stripping Monroe and giving her a barbiturate enema. In another twist, Porter posits it could also have been one of the Kennedys that hired the mob boss to get rid of Monroe. Conspiracy Theory 3, she knew too much about aliens? One of the nuttier theories is discussed in new documentary Unacknowledged by conspiracy theorist Dr. Stephen Greer, who claims Monroe was murdered by the CIA because she knew the truth about Roswell and planned to reveal all. In the film, Greer produces what he says is a classified CIA memo written just 2 days before Monroe's death. In the alleged memo that Greer believes refers to the storied Roswell UFO crash in New Mexico in 1947, JFK is said to have told Monroe he witnessed evidence of things from outer space at a secret air base. We have a number of smoking gun documents, including a wiretap of Marilyn Monroe the day before she died, which has never been declassified, Greer writes. She was threatening to hold a press conference to tell the world what Jack Kennedy had told her during pillow talk about having seen debris from an extraterrestrial vehicle at what the document calls a secret air base. She was murdered for this. Conspiracy Theory 4, she's still alive just like Tupac. Fake death theories are a dime a dozen when it comes to dead stars. The more iconic they are, the more the theories persist. One man claims Monroe's death was staged and her psychiatrist, Dr. Ralph Greenson, committed her to a mental institution in New Brunswick, Canada because of a breakdown she experienced due to the threats on her life. John Alexander Baker, author of Marilyn Monroe, alive in 1984, believes Monroe stayed at the institution for 20 years without being recognized, before being released. According to the book outline, Baker says he picked up a hitchhiker in Nova Scotia in 1984 who claimed to be Monroe, now a homeless, frightened, paranoid schizophrenic. She told him of her days as a former movie star, and Baker was taken by her resemblance to Monroe, as well as the similarity in her singing voice. Baker admits the woman's mental state would make her story hard to believe for most, but says, "I believe 99% that she really was who she claimed to be."
Miss Monroe has suffered from psychiatric disturbance for a long time. She had often expressed wishes to give up, to withdraw, and even to die. On more than one occasion in the past, when disappointed and depressed, she had made a suicide attempt using sedative drugs. On these occasions, she had called for help and had been rescued. From the information collected about the events of the evening of August the 4th, it is our opinion that the same pattern was repeated except for the rescue. On the basis of all the information obtained, it is our opinion that the case is a probable suicide.
She is interred at Westwood Village Memorial Park Cemetery while we have remained and studied the surroundings of her demise. The connection between Kanye and Marilyn, both have been criticized for their controversial actions and statements. Both have been accused of using their fame to further their own agendas. Both have been misunderstood by the general public, but still, maintain a loyal fan base. The connection between Kanye West and Marilyn Monroe runs deeper than just surface-level similarities. Their impact on popular culture has been felt for decades and will continue to influence future generations. Whether you love them or hate them, there's no denying the impact that Kanye and Marilyn have had on our society.